I want to just encourage you with this. You actually can become a very skilled photographer with very little because technology has made it so incredibly easy. Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Sam Hine, and I'm so blessed and privileged that you have joined me today for this episode where I'm going to be sharing with you 5 of my favorite top tips for getting great photographs using your mobile phone. And I might throw a few little extra tips and tricks in there along the way. The reason I want to do this episode is because I know a lot of people are not still to this day not taking photographs using their phone. In fact, they're using stock images or images taken by other people. And I want to really encourage you. You have got one of the most powerful cameras in your hand. You've probably got, you might be listening to me on your phone right now, or you've got your phone within arm's reach. And I absolutely guarantee that no matter what your skill set is, you can get some incredible photographs using this amazing tool. So I want to give you some tips to do this, no matter what your experience level is. Now, before you think to yourself, okay, well, Sam's coming from a professional perspective. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do this stuff. Let me just take you back a couple of notches here because my parents actually were photographers. Now, as we all know, when you grow up with parents that are experts in a particular area, you either follow in their footsteps or you resist it. Now, I was the resistor. So I actually grew up wanting nothing to do with photography. I know very, very little about it. But what I do know is that as the mobile phones took over with these incredible cameras, my parents actually stepped away from not only photography, but also their stores because they recognized that there wasn't really a need. Unless you had a particular interest in, these fancy SLR cameras, there wasn't a need for people to use these expensive cameras anymore because everyone has a powerful camera right there in their handbag or their back pocket or their hand. So I want to just encourage you with this. You actually can become a very, very skilled photographer with very little because technology has made it so incredibly easy. So I want to share with you today my 5 quick tips for getting great photos. This is a power podcast episode so that you can be always sharing content you create. Now, as I get into this episode, I want to tell you why this matters so much. The platforms, and this is not new information, but the platforms are prioritizing content that is user generated. This means content you create. They want to reward creators. Now, I don't want you to think that a creator has to be somebody who is super duper creative. A creator is anyone who comes up with their own content, who creates their own content rather than shares other people's. Now, you are that, and I want to encourage you to be more of that because this is where the magic happens. To get extra reach, to get more attention, to be favored by that algorithm, the very first thing you need to be doing is coming up with your own posts, taking photographs, recording your own video, writing your own captions. And so I want you to get into the habit of taking images on a daily basis and create for yourself a little bit of a stockpile or a gallery of images you can use as you create your content. Now, I love doing this, but it is a learned habitual process. It's something that you need to get into the habit of doing because I can tell you, when I first started on social media, I didn't naturally think to pick the phone up and record what was going on in my everyday life. This was something I had to learn to do. It was a habit I had to create. And the best thing that you can do to do this is start to document. Just start to document things, take photographs and record little videos as you go through everyday life. You don't need to know how you're going to use it yet, but create little galleries, little albums of images that you can use down the track. If you go to the beach, get a bunch of different photographs, a few different videos. If you're out with the kids and you see something fun or something interesting happens, or suddenly there's some, incredible sunset or a beautiful background, get a couple of selfies and cool photographs as you go. You never know when you're going to need these down the track. So, with all of that being said, let's give you a couple of tips right now. My first tip is the first couple actually are really super simple and yet not widely practiced. And the first one is your lighting. Your lighting is very, very important. I want to give you a couple of quick tips here with this. Number one, make sure that everywhere possible you use natural light. Now, it's not always possible, but natural light is going to be the best lighting most of the time to get the best images. Now, if you don't have natural light, you can do things like get some ring lights. You can get a simple lamp. You don't have to spend lots of money on clever tools. But make sure that whatever it is that you are taking the photograph on has good lighting coming from the front. Where a lot of people go wrong with this is they'll do something like stand in front of a window or in front of the sun or in front of the light source. And what that actually does is it casts shadow over your face or over the object that you are photographing or videoing. So rather than doing that, turn yourself around or turn the object around so that the light is coming either from the side or from the front. Now, if you're watching this podcast, you'll actually see what I'm talking about here, because right now I have actually got two windows that are on one side of my face. And for that reason, I'm trying to balance out, because you can see there's some shadow cast here right now. So I'm trying to balance out that light with a couple of ring lights. I actually deliberately turned one of them down because I wanted you to see the contrast that happens. Now, if I had no ring light on here right now, you'd see almost a line down the side of my face and quite a lot of shadow cast here, which would purely be because I've got the light source shining here. So you can imagine if I turn myself around, see the difference that makes? Suddenly my face is in full shadow and the back of my head is getting all the lighting. So be a little bit mindful of that. It's simple positioning, but where you can, use natural light. You don't need tricky, expensive tools to master this. Okay. Number two, this is a little pet peeve for me. So I wanted to bring it in early on. If you've heard me do any training, you've heard me talk about this one before, but I've got to bring it up when we're talking about photography and video, because this should just become a naturally ingrained habit for you. And I hate it. You will start to too, as you start to pay attention and I tell you what I'm about to tell you. You will hate it when you see a piece of content from somebody who hasn't done this, because you'll start to notice it. And it's like it grates on me like nails down a chalkboard. Here's what it is. Clean your lens. It's not hard to do, but it makes such a huge difference to your image. Just think about it. Your phone lives in dirty environments, from your back pocket to your handbag to maybe your kids' fingers. And so what happens is the lens on your phone gets dust and often a greasy film over it from things like fingertips. And this happens in moments. So every time you pick your phone up to take a photograph, give the lens, front and or back, depending on which lens you're using, a quick clean, a quick wipe. Now, what do you clean it with? Again, you don't need fancy things. What do? I use whatever clothing I'm wearing, unless I happen to have a little microfiber cleaning cloth handy. These are great to have in your handbag or in your wallet, or just, you can even get them in little tiny containers that just clip onto the handles of your handbag if you want to. That's a really handy thing to have. Or just use your clothes. It doesn't need to be fancy, but what you shouldn't use is a tissue. Using a tissue or a Kleenex will actually leave lint on your lens and possibly make it worse. But I'm going to tell you something that you won't be able to unsee now. You'll know, pay attention when you see someone taking a photo or a video with an unclean lens. If you remember back when my parents were doing professional photography, they used to do a lot of glamour photography, and they had these vignettes that created this filter that looked like this fuzz. It softened the image, if you like. Now, back then, that was a super popular thing to do, and it was quite flattering because it also softened, if you needed a little bit of softening, maybe around the edges, it helped with that. The problem is it is no longer in, and it looks icky. For me, I feel like my eyes almost don't want to look at the image when I see this. So what happens when you've got that grease on the lens is it creates this fuzzy, almost light softening of the image, which takes away from the crisp, beautiful photograph that you could be getting. So I probably didn't describe that very well, but you're going to start to see this. And when you start to pay attention to the images you see people posting, when you see one that looks kind of like it's got a haze over it, like a light haze going on, like there's weird lighting or something happening, know this, it's grease on the lens and they didn't clean it. So I get to the point now where if I see someone doing a video or they're taking photographs and I see that, I can't help myself, but I message them. I'm like, hey, just a quick tip, just clean your lens. Because it's a little bit selfish, but I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I can't keep looking at your content if you don't clean it, because it's like, it's just driving me nuts. So when you know you can't unsee it, right? So I want you to be driven nuts with me. I don't want to be alone in this. So start cleaning your lens. Really, really important. All right, now I'm going to get off my high horse. We're going to go to step number 3. And step number 3 is a really super cool tip that a lot of people don't know, and this is the rule of thirds. Now, I learned this probably 3 or 4 years ago, and with photographers as parents, I should have already known this, so I felt a little embarrassed that I was learning it for the first time. So between you and I, let's share with you what this is. The rule of thirds changes the way that the eyes focus on the image, and essentially you can turn on in your camera, in your phone settings, you can turn on a grid, which is 2 lines down, 2 lines across, and it creates 4 intersections in your photo. You've probably seen this on professional cameras. You might have seen it on some other people's phones as well, and you wondered what it was. It's a way to line up the subject of your image to change the focus. Now, what most people do is they position themselves right in the middle of the camera. So I'm doing that right now. So this is where they take a photograph, for example, of a sunset and the horizon, or a coffee cup or an image or a product, and they put it right in the middle. And what this does is it makes it actually harder to look at than if you were to use one of these intersections. So 2 vertical and 2 horizontal lines, it breaks the image into 9 equal rectangles, a little bit like a tic-tac-toe board. And the idea here is to place your subject at the point of focus where the lines intersect, not in the dead center. And this creates balance, it creates movement and visual interest. And it's actually how our eyes naturally look at images. So what this does is it makes your image or your video more appealing without needing any filters or design. So it's really simple. So I've just moved myself right now into a different point of focus. And what that does is it actually brings the background into the photo or into the video. Whereas if I'm right in the center here, the background's lost, it's gone. It's as simple as moving yourself. So if you're looking at this video right now, if you imagine there's 2 lines right down the middle here and then 2 lines here, this would be an intersection as with this. So next time you're taking a photograph of even a horizon or a sunset, instead of positioning it in the middle, just drop it a little and have it intersect with that bottom line or the top line. I go the bottom line, and it will change the composition essentially of the image. So it'll change the way that the eyes, composition is the wrong word, but it will change the way that the eyes are drawn to that photograph or that video. It makes it more visually appealing, brings the background in. So have some fun with that. That's a little tip for you. And it's a fun one to play with. Just next time you're taking a photograph, by the way, of a product, test it by taking the photograph the way you would normally, which would be right in the middle probably, and then try taking it from a few different positions where you're using those intersections and notice the difference. Ask yourself, which one actually is more appealing to me? And you'll probably find it's the same for your audience as well. So that's number 3. Number 4 is so important, and this is human element. Human element has a subconscious impact, but it also helps people connect with you. Remember, people are not buying your product, they're not buying your business, they're buying you first. They will buy your product and they will buy your business once they feel a connection with you, but that means you have to show up. Now, I see a lot of people just taking pictures of things and not inserting themselves. Now, it doesn't mean you have to insert yourself all the time. It's okay if you want to take a picture of things from time to time without you in it. But human element doesn't mean you need a face in the image all of the time. You can use a hand. a foot. It doesn't need to be your beautiful face. I'd love to see your beautiful face more often, but it doesn't need to be that. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how this works, but essentially, the brain, when it sees a human element, can relate and connect with that image much, much faster. So it creates more trust, but it also helps connect really quickly. So I was working with a restaurant probably about, I'm going to say like 15 years ago now, back when I was in my marketing role. And this particular restaurant would change their menu, as many of them do, once every 3 to 6 months. And every time they did this, we would go in and get some photographs of their new menu. Now, typically what this restaurant would do is it would have a perfectly set table, or in this case, an old wine barrel, and it would put the plate of food with the knife and the fork there and a glass of wine, and they'd take this essentially a flat lay type photograph, so directly down onto that dish. And it was always a really beautiful photograph. But I challenged the restaurant to let me try something because I knew how important human element was, and I had recently at this time learned the subconscious power of incorporating human element as well. So what I asked them to do was let me get 2 photographs. The first one was the photograph of the perfect flat lay of the plate with the wine glass, exactly the way they would have done it on top of the wine barrel. Now, the second one was almost exactly the same, but the only difference was I got someone to reach in and pick up the plate with their hand. So now we're still taking the photograph directly down. It's still above the wine barrel, but there's a hand and a forearm in the photograph. So the hand is holding the plate. Now, the restaurant was completely unconvinced that this was going to make any difference for their social media. But I asked them to trust me in this. And what we did was we posted the first image, the one that they would normally take, the following week on a Wednesday at lunchtime, which for them was their prime posting time, their most popular posting time on Facebook. The photograph got the standard number of responses, a whole bunch of people saying, wow, that looks amazing. We should go out for dinner there next week. And it went okay. Nothing stand out. It didn't tank. Did great. Did as well as any of their posts normally would. But what I asked them to do was the following week post exactly the same photograph post the new photograph at exactly the same time, so Wednesday lunchtime, but the one with the hand in the image. The post absolutely took off. There was no difference in caption. There was no difference in the dish itself, except suddenly there's a hand and a forearm. The post got 10 times the reach and interaction as the original one did the week before. Now, another example of this, I was teaching with a bunch of Thermomix leaders this concept, and I shared that story with them. And there were a bunch of leaders in the room who they were all brought a dish with them that day, and one of them had brought a plate of brownies to share with everyone at the event. She had a great following on social media. She was doing really well, but her typical post strategy was create a beautiful dish, take a photograph, and post one per day. Now, she was getting really great interaction. She was doing really well, but not a lot of it was converting. She wasn't getting a lot of results. She was getting a lot of interaction, not a lot of connection and sales. So she said, I'm going to go home. I'm going to try this. She said, I took a photograph already of this plate of brownies. But she said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a photograph now of someone's hand picking up one of the brownies off the plate. And I want to see if what you're telling me, Sam, works. Now, can I tell you, anything I teach you, anything anyone teaches you for social media, test it. I encourage you to do that. So she did exactly that. She took a photograph of someone's hand taking the first brownie off the pile. That was the only difference in the photograph. 2 days later, I get an email from her, and she was blown away. She said that one post got more interaction, more connections and reach outs to her directly than any photo, any post she had created in the last 4 years. The only difference, it was the first time she incorporated a human element in her images, because she thought up until that point that she didn't matter, that human wasn't important, that people just wanted to see beautiful photos of food. So human element has a very, very powerful impact. So wherever possible, bring you or human element into your photographs and your video. It also, by the way, makes it more real and more relatable. So I cannot stress this one enough. I have tested it that many times. My members have tested it that many times, and every time it works, hands down. Okay, the very last one here is this: angle for impact. Now, I want to I could speak about this from a photography perspective, but I actually want to talk about it from a you showing up on camera perspective for a moment, because there are a few very small tweaks you can make that will make all the difference to your videos. And the angle in which your camera is sitting is actually so impactful subconsciously to your viewers. So I see a lot of people when they do video, I'll be staring up their nose, or I'll be staring down at them. So they'll be angling the camera so that you're looking up or down. There is actually a perfect angle for your videos to be at, depending on what impact you want to have. So think about it this way. How do you feel when someone is looking down at you? What do you feel? It's like there's a sense of authority, right? They're speaking down at you. What do you think when you're looking up at somebody? Well, aside from the fact that that's not the most flattering angle, looking up someone's nose, it gives the opposite feel. So, sorry, other way around. So staring up at someone, you're looking up their nose. Staring down at someone, it's the opposite feeling. So I want you to think about, first of all, what impact do I want to have? The perfect angle, if you want the impact to be that there's a sense of credibility and authority, but you want them to feel a connection and relatability with you, is to have the camera either ever so slightly below eye level or ever so slightly above yours. So they're looking either slightly down or slightly up. Now, because of what I do, and I'm teaching every day, that's what I do. I want to create a sense of authority, but I also want to make sure that people feel that they can connect and relate. So my camera typically is ever so slightly below eye level. So looking up at me ever so slightly. So I am just a little elevated above my viewer. Now, if, however, I want to talk about something that means I need people to feel like it might be a more personal story, it might be something that's much more human. I might be, breaking the walls down a little bit and letting people in a little bit. I will reverse that and I will have the camera ever so slightly above my eye level. So people are looking down on me just slightly. So just be a little bit mindful of the positioning of your camera. Remember, if you've got the camera looking straight up at you, and a lot of people do this because they'll put their camera on like a kitchen bench or a bench top or something like that, and they don't really think about that. But looking down at the camera creates this sense of authority and that you're speaking down at your audience and your viewers. It's not a conscious thing, by the way, so they're not necessarily going to know that that's what you're making them feel and that's why, but it is still an impression it will give. And people will not remember what you said, they won't remember what you do, but they will remember how you made them feel. So these little tiny tweaks can make all the difference. So a really great little tip is just invest in a good little tripod. These are my favorites, but there are lots of great ones out there. These are the Benros. These also have a little, and like many, they come with a little Bluetooth shutter as well. I love this one though because it fits snugly in my handbag. I don't even know it's there, and it extends to about 1 meter tall, and it's got the little tripod base on the bottom. So, and these are pretty sturdy and they'll fit any camera. So the reason I love this is I can, no matter where I'm at, make sure I've positioned that camera correctly so that I'm not looking down. I don't have them looking down on me, but there's that feeling of connection and relatability all of the time. So they're my 5 quick tips. Just to reiterate what they were, was number 1, natural lighting or light. Make sure that your lighting is positioned correctly for the best possible lighting and not having shadow issues on the object or on you. So natural lighting and positioning your lighting. Number 2 is clean your lens. Make sure that you clean it as a habit every time you pick that camera up. Number 3 was the rule of thirds. Try taking an image that's not centered all of the time. Try and, test moving to different positions within the screen and turn those grid lines on to play with this inside of your camera settings in your phone. Number 4 is add human element in. Remember, people are connecting and relating with you, not necessarily your product or your business yet. That will happen down the track. But first, they need to feel a connection with you. So show up, whether it's your face, whether it's a hand, whether it's a foot, whether it's the back of you. There are lots of ways to incorporate this. And number 5 is angle for impact. Just think about the angle of your camera. So that's it from me. I hope you've got a couple of tips here to go away and play with. Make sure you test what I'm sharing with you. Have a little play with this. If there's one thing in here that you haven't tried before, give that one thing a try. Remember, it's not about getting it all right now. It's about the 1 degree shift. So what's one thing off the back of this episode you can implement and play with? Maybe it's none of the things I said. Maybe it was just inspiration to get out there and start creating more content. And if that's what it is, that's amazing. Go ahead, create more content from you. Remember, user-generated content is the key for algorithm reach. So that's it from me today. I hope you found this super helpful. If you did, please share it with a friend. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the podcast again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. If you love listening and you found that this was helpful for your direct selling business, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also check out the recommended video that's popped up on your screen right here. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye for now.